Go ahead. No, not yet, sorry.
Aren't you introducing me, or am I starting?
Not yet. You can go ahead now.
Hey guys, Katie here from Equestrian Movement, and we are doing presentation 6 for
Session 6. Yeah.
for our first Do No Harm summit, and tonight we are going to be talking about the 3 secrets, my special secrets that will progress your dressage riding if you're feeling stuck and going round and round and round and round and round, swimming a circle and not going anywhere from there.
So before Katie starts on, I am just going to give you guys a moment to all hop in and sign up. If you see me on the camera looking across to my left-hand side, which will probably show up as my right-hand side on the camera, it's because I'm looking at the Facebook stream, looking for questions through there. In terms of questions that you might have as you're coming through them, absolutely 100% feel free to ask them. I'll be monitoring the questions that come through, and I'll interject with Katie and ask them on your behalf so that Katie can respond to them. And if we do require more information, we will ask for that as well. So if you do have those, feel free to pop them into the chat section as well. If at any stage you are wanting more information, you can definitely reach out to us on private messenger if it's more information that we can provide at that particular time, or via email, which you would have been getting our emails if you are registered to the list. So this session tonight is actually our final session for this evening. However, tomorrow we've got another jam-packed day with another 5 presentations, including including 2 other horse trainers, a physio, a body worker, and myself, a veterinary nurse. So we've got some pretty great information. If you have to pop in and pop back out again, that's okay. The recordings will be available. If you're in the Facebook group, you will be able to catch up with the recordings afterwards. If you are joining us through the webinar, the replays will be emailed out to you and you can watch them at your leisure over the next 2 weeks. So on that, hey, Pam's here alive.
Hey Pam.
Saying that she's finally catching us live, which is the joy of being international, because we're in Australia, Brisbane, where it's gotten down to a chilly 18 degrees.
Weather.
And Pam's over in Canada, where it's climbing out of winter, which is nice. So it looks like our audience is starting to roll in, Katie. So if you want to start kicking off, absolutely go ahead.
Hey, so tonight we're talking about 3 secrets that will progress your dressage riding. So before we get into that, a little bit about me. I am the coach and instructor here at Equestrian Movement. I have 27 years plus of riding and competing experience, 14 years plus of instructing experience, and I've worked with hundreds of horse and rider combinations to improve soundness and conditioning. So, you know, we've heard from so many people today that are so passionate about different areas of the equine industry, and this one is mine. I did a lot of competing as a child, and I got a lot of the drive to get ribbons and marks and percentages and wins and whatnot out of my system quite young. And as I entered my professional career as a horse riding instructor and trainer, I started coming across a lot of behavioral issues and soundness issues. And so one of the things that really stuck with me that one of my mentors said was that if your horse is worked correctly, then it should stay sound. And so this became, you know, my deep dive into horse movement and soundness, and what we're actually trying to achieve as riders, which is where equestrian movement has flourished from. That's who we are at Equestrian Movement, is using training and exercising our horses to improve their overall posture, conditioning, and soundness. So, oh, there we go. My bad. So what happened for me was I just didn't like the person that I had to be the professional trainer that I was working towards. I didn't like the training methods that I was being taught. I didn't like that the horses were consistently coming up with soundness issues. I didn't like the stress and the pressure and, you know, all of the things that we experience as equestrians in this industry. And so I just got to the point as a professional where I just said, there has to be a better way. I can't keep going like this. And there's been many times where I have considered quitting just because I didn't like who I had to be the trainer that I wanted to be. But quitting wouldn't have helped the horses, and it, you know, wouldn't support that long-term goal in any way of improving the lives and the welfare of our horses and how they were ridden. So, you know, I really stuck at it to make sure that we could offer the support in our horses training that I really wanted to see, because just because I quit because the methods didn't sit right for me didn't mean that anybody else was going to follow suit. So we come back to one of our core philosophies. Obviously, that's what our whole summit is first, do no harm, and then second, movement is medicine. So if our horses are moving correctly and in flow with their body, then they should be improving in soundness and agility and feeling good in their body. And if we have this conversation a lot in our Green to Self Carriage membership, is that if we do give them a short break, then they actually come back into work better for it, because we've asked them to use their body and engage their posture in work. So when they spell, they actually maintain that for a period of time, and they actually work better for the spell and letting the muscles down, rather than, you know, when you're working them incorrectly and they have a spell, they come back into work with a lot of resistance, and that resistance is the result of us forcing them into an unnatural frame. So our big goal here is to work with our horses as partners, and ideally our end goal is as equals, but as we learned last night in our Stronger Bond presentation, sometimes they don't always make the best choices. So where we can, we're working on becoming our horses equals with our horses, and improving our relationship to help them thrive in their working environment, both mentally, physically, and emotionally. And a lot of the presentations that we've had today have been addressing, you know, those physical impacts that we can have from poorly fitted bits to, you know, supporting our horses' hooves for their movement. And then Jane with her aromatherapy going a bit more into the mental and emotional support that we can provide with our other modalities. And so what we're here to do is address physical issues that come up as a result of riding. So we're talking about you know, not working the horse correctly over their back, so they end up tight and hollow and developing bucking, rearing, bolting, lameness, bridle lame, so that means that they're sound on the ground, but when you ride them, they're lame. All those kinds of physical issues that can come up because we are not using our conditioning exercises appropriately, and also it's the way that we apply our aids and how we sit in the saddle, which Zane tomorrow is going to talk about our fitness as a rider and our balance as well, and how that can impact how our horses are working. So this photo here is, it used to be one of my favorite photos as a competitor, because honestly, how do you get more frame than that? But now, as knowing what I know and you know, progressing along that musculoskeletal development training and whatnot, I can see just how detrimental it is to a horse to actually work like this now. We get told a lot in our competitions, on our test papers, and from our instructors and trainers and whatnot, you know, more bend, more forward, more frame. But we don't really seem to, well, I don't know about you guys, but I feel like it's, we never get told how. So we get told the aids that we should apply, but for me, the correct development of the horse is not more forward, more frame, more bend. It's creating that dynamic action of, you know, getting those polar opposites developed so that we're engaging the core, so that the frame is the end result of a good posture and self-carriage. Whereas in this photo, you know, I'm ticking those boxes of, you know, more bend, more frame, more forward, and you know, he couldn't get any lighter because of how far he's sucked behind the bit. But in reality, he's not using his body correctly. He's flexed away at the third vertebrae, so the concussion that he would be experiencing on the vertebrae there is extreme. He'll be working on the forehand, and he'll have you know, a lot of tightness and discomfort through his back. But this is what we get rewarded for. So, you know, these are the marks in the dressage test. He's giving the picture that the judges want, so it's reinforcing you know, that this is the correct way to ride, and our horses are unhappy doing it though. So our horses do have amazing compensatory mechanisms where they will adapt to try and protect themselves from the impact of this kind of riding. And by the time we actually see soundness issues, the damage is fairly well advanced. So we've got to be introducing the correct movement at the beginning of their training, and not trying to fix it down the track once the issues are well established and visible. So we want to be making sure that they're tracking up correctly from behind, they're swinging through their back, they're using their hindquarters appropriately, and engaging their top line and their core and their posture. So self-carriage is a progressive development of the horse's dynamic action. I think of this as like your ballerina on the bar. You don't start at you know, the high level movements. It's you know, an ongoing development of your own posture and your own strength and suppleness and conditioning. And so this is what I see the development towards self-carriage as, is it's, you know, a green broken horse isn't particularly forward or balanced or supple, and it's the exercises that we do with them that creates the engagement of those core postural muscles, and those exercises are from you know, the training scale and what we see when we go into our competitions. So the exercises we are tested on in dressage develop our horses' poise, balance, fluidity of movement, and that's, as I said, as you see our ballerinas do on the bar. But same as our ballerinas, is sometimes they get pushed too hard too young, and they break down young. We also don't want to be pushing our horses too hard too young either. So the 20-meter circles, long and low, and serpentines in prelim develop the rhythm and tempo, relaxation and swing needed for prelim tests. The 15-meter circles, leg yield and length and strides develop engagement, elastic top line and throughness required for novice. And 10-meter circles, walk through simple changes, shoulder and travers. Rein back develop the horse's athletic potential for impulsion, collection and medium stride. So our problem is we can get unstuck when we are taking our baby green horse out that's only just doing 20-meter circles at home, and we compete against, you know, the professional and the warm blood horse that is at home training elementary, and they're taking their horse out for exposure. So of course, judges are going to say to us, your horse needs more bend, more frame, more forward in comparison to that warm blood that's at home training elementary. But realistically, you potentially have the appropriate development of the horse that you are riding. Because it's an ongoing training scale, and that's also why we recommend to train a level or two higher than what you're competing, so that when you do go out to compete, you're at your you know, you're doing what's easy for you and your horse, not challenging them and expecting them to do more than they're capable of at home. So I'm just going to move my little Zoom box. Mistake number one that I see is that more forward doesn't mean faster. So comments that you might see on your test are more forward, lacking impulsion, lacking forwardness, ride them more forward. Who has had those comments? They come up quite a bit. So riding faster puts them on the forehand. So as you can see with this horse, all of its weight is distributed onto its chest and shoulders and onto the forehand, and bringing them into a frame from there means that they are breaking away at the third vertebrae and hyperflexing through the frame, which really structurally weakens their back, and that's what creates soundness issues through the back. You can see that they're long and they're strung out and they're disengaged by how far the hindquarters are trailing behind them. So when we create forwardness from speed and then try to bring them into a frame, we end up stressing their back and creating a rotation through the pelvis. It puts a lot of concussion on their forelegs. You can see in that photo there how hyperflexed he is through the pasterns, and issues that can come up as a result of it are bucking, lameness. We can see behavioral issues when we're mounting and bucking into the canter. So the truth about establishing more forwardness is that we actually need more slow. So we're using tempo changes. More forwardness isn't talking about speed, it's talking about power, it's talking about ground coverage, it's talking about elasticity of the top line, swing and relaxation. So when we do tempo changes, we're asking the horse to wait and to sit and to push and to drive and to wait and to sit and to push and to drive. So we're creating that dynamic action where we're like going too slow, we're going too fast, we're going too slow, we're going too fast, and then we're finding our in between, and then we're going too fast, and then we're going too slow, and we're going too fast, and we're going too slow, and then we're finding our in between. And so that's where the power and the forwardness is that we've got a horse that is waiting, but that is also driving from behind. This is the first stage that we work on when we're moving our horses from green to self-carriage, because they don't really have that adaptability in the stride. And if you're doing any kind of jumping or pole work, you'll see that they will misstep coming into jumps and whatnot when they don't have this adaptability of the stride, because they need to be able to shorten and lift, and they need to be able to push back out and cover the ground again. And so that's what the tempo changes do, is it creates, you know, the balance that is required for the adaptability of the length of stride. So another thing that you will see on your test sheets is more bend. More bend does not mean more inside leg, and that's commonly how it's written. So what you might see is circle not round, circle too big, circle too small, or circle needs more bend. And so one of the things that you will think when you're being told that your circle isn't round and that your circle needs more bend is that it's your inside rein, inside leg that creates more bend. And so it does create more bend through your horse's body, but we need the appropriate amount of bend through the horse's body to get the shape that we are riding. So if you are trying to ride a 20-meter circle, then you need the angle of a 20-meter circle through your horse's body. If you ask for more bend than that, then it is going to have the angle of a 15-meter circle through the horse's body. And so then we're going to get the circle is too small. So why is the circle too small? Because the horse has too much bend through its body. And so to get, you know, more bend, oh, we're not up to that slide yet. Mistakes that you can have when you are trying to ride more bend from your inside leg is that it creates crookedness by displacing the shoulder. So this is significantly more subtle than the first horse that we looked at, but this horse is still traveling on the forehand. You can see the way that the muscle development at the base of the pole, it's still flexing away at the third vertebrae, but also the muscle is overdeveloped behind the ears there. So it is actually pulling into the inside rein. So how many of you guys, you know, find that you're always trying to get your inside rein lighter? This is why, is because instead of asking your horse to work around your leg, you're actually asking for more bend off of the inside leg, and so you're displacing the shoulders. And so you can see where there's extra weight in that outside shoulder, and they actually got a slight tilt and a twist through the nose to give you flexion to the inside, because they can't, this muscle here isn't actually flexed to turn their head in. This muscle is blocking their head to turn in, and so they are just tilting their nose to give you the flexion. We don't have them using their body laterally around the leg, and so as a result, the hips get twisted to kind of compensate for that. And so we've got the rotation through the pelvis, the displacement of the shoulder, the extra concussion on the outside fore, so that also means that the inside hind isn't coming through and bearing the weight. And then we've got the tilt through the pelvis. So instead of enhancing our horse's structural soundness by making them more supple, we're actually creating more structural issues because they're twisting instead. So problems that you'll see if they're crooked, if you're creating crookedness here, you'll have problems picking up the canter lead. So if your horse is picking up the canter lead one way but not the other, they're overdeveloped one way and not developed the other. We'll see problems in establishing impulsion, throughness, and collection, because that's truly, you know, what we need straightness for, is to get them to transition their weight off the forehand onto the hindquarters so that they can extend through the shoulder. And when we see that range of movement through the shoulder, we can start to see throughness, impulsion, and collection. So if your horse is twisting crooked like this, it won't develop self-carriage, and the twist will create ongoing problems with soundness. So you'll see, you know, one leg stepping shorter than the other. It may not necessarily come up as soundness issues, but you might have irregularity of stride, irregularity of rhythm and tempo, and lacking that swing elasticity and relaxation that we're looking for. So the truth about getting our true bend is even distribution of weight across all four legs, plus getting the deeper step through the inside hind. So one of the exercises that we use for this is spirals. When we're looking at a horse that we want to work on a 20-meter circle. And we're comparing, you know, the green broken horse that is only just learning how to use itself properly to the horse that is at home training elementary. Of course, when you compare the two, the green broken horse is going to need more bend, and more lateral suppleness. So if we just try and ride more bend, more bend, more bend, more bend through their body, we don't actually create that lateral suppleness, and we just displace the shoulders and make them crooked. So we really need to be riding a combination of our yield to step them through deeper behind, and riding them around our inside leg so that they're looking in the direction of travel, but then also being able to ride our counter bend and counter flexion to re-engage the outside hind when they twist, to correct that twist and keep them straight on the curved line. The spirals help to develop the suppleness that they require to get more bend on the 20-meter circle. Of course, a horse that is competent in a 10-meter circle is going to show more lateral suppleness in a 20-meter circle than the horse that can only do a 20-meter circle. So by purposefully decreasing and then straightening the angle of the bend out, again, we're creating that dynamic action where we're increasing the bend, straightening the bend, increasing the bend, straightening the bend, increasing the bend, straightening the bend, and we're riding that in between, which is balance. So where more bend can go wrong, as we've talked a bit about, the outside, where if you go inside rein, inside leg, more bend, more bend, more bend, the first thing your horse will do is disengage the outside hind and drop through the pelvis. We can end up with more weight on the inside shoulder if they're starting to kind of motorbike around the circles, because they're ignoring your inside leg, and that creates concussion on the shoulder. Or we can end up with more weight through the outside shoulder because they start falling out through the circle because they can't maintain the quality of bend that you're looking for end the turn. We'll get the twist through the pelvis because of the way the outside hind disengages and drops. And we'll have ongoing issues when you're trying to move forward. And that's both forward in developing forwardness and forward in, doing your more difficult exercises. So if you think about this horse and you try to introduce leg yield, they're just going to fall through the shoulder to the track rather than learning how to step through and re-engage. We're going to have problems on our shoulder in because we won't be able to connect the shoulder and half hold them into the inside hind. We're going to have problems with just steering in general, with getting them to follow the inside rein. And because of the twist and we're not developing the straightness, we're also going to lose the quality of forwardness. And because of the twist, they're also going to be staying on the forehand. And the quality of forwardness and the power of the forwardness that develops the swing and the relaxation and the tracking up comes from stacking the vertebrae correctly for their posture so that we are freeing up the shoulders and moving them out of the road. When we create this twist, it grounds the forehand further, and so they're pulling with the chest and the shoulders, and it gets more in the road. So as we said, it will create difficulty if you're trying to develop shoulder in smaller circles in trot and canter and collection. So our next mistake that we can make is that more contact equals a better frame. So if we try to create frame from just the neck flexing, then we end up with the horse sucking behind the bit and the frame becoming too deep. And we end up with the problem of them flexing away at the third vertebrae, which is where that arrow is pointing. And so that creates a lot of compression through the joints of the neck and can create a lot of pain for the horses. When they are holding their frame this way, it's also grounding the shoulders. We actually want the base of the withers here to flex more so than up here in the crest, because this is what's actually going to pull the forehand up out of the road. So when they are behind the bit like this, it ends up grounding the forehand. So it will mean that they've got unequal engagement of hindquarters to lift of their shoulders to frame. So we want the same amount of flexion through their hindquarters as we can create of lift through the shoulders and the depth of the frame. If we ask for more frame than lift, then we end up putting them more on the forehand. So again, this horse will lack forwardness because it's on the forehand. It can't create that drive and the power and relaxation and swing from behind, but it also won't be able to bend around the leg properly. That hyperflexion through the neck and the frame there really destabilizes the chest and the shoulders. So the lateral suppleness and tone that is required for our horse to bend around our leg is lost. Using rein contact to create neck flexion creates issues with the neck, and it will make it impossible to create the impulsion and throughness because of the way that they are on the forehand. So the truth about what our rein contact should be doing is that it shouldn't be creating frame, it should be creating hock flexion. We want our rein contact to get our horse to be thinking more into their haunches. If you have a bit of a play with this, and what you'll see is that the resistance that you feel in your hands when you're trying to create a frame isn't because of the whether their neck is resistant or not. It's because their hocks are locked straight, and if we keep the hocks locked straight and still ask for that flexion, then all they're going to do is tuck their chin in. They're not going to use their body any better. So the first thing that we are asking them to do is to sit into their haunches a little bit and to give us the hock flexion. As soon as the hocks soften and relax, and the rest of the back can relax, and when the rest of the back can relax, then the neck can relax. And also when we start moving the weight off of the forehand onto the hindquarters, they're not having to use their underneck to balance themselves and stabilize their movement. So we can start to develop the top line and the crest and allow the underneck to soften and relax. So rein back helps our horses learn how to sit more into our haunches, which allows for the smooth transition to go from self-carriage to collection. This is the place where lots and lots of people will get stuck and they'll give up on their horse because they think that their horse isn't capable of any more. And we need to be doing this right at the beginning when our horses are green, so that they are developing their self-carriage from freeing up their movement and transferring the weight more into their hindquarters and balancing it evenly across all four legs. Because once they can do that, then it's a very easy progression into collection because they're already using their body properly. But if we create the self-carriage frame, like the overall picture, purely from rein contact, we put their head in the right place, but we haven't got the rest of their body in the right place. So we've got nowhere that we can take it. Our horse is only associating rein contact to sucking behind the bit. So then when we go to collect, all we're doing is creating a horse that is sucking more and more back, not a horse that is getting more into a collection. So the end game of your work is the continual progress of dynamic movement. So we're, again, we're pushing those ends of the spectrum to really consolidate the working paces in the middle. We're going pushing the trot forward, bringing it back to get the working paces. We're bending and straightening to get the suppleness. We're asking the frame to go down and stretch, and then we're coming back up and engaging the top line. We're asking our horses to sit deeper through their haunches, and everything that we're doing is we're kind of coming around at all angles to in a way that we can try and communicate to our horse to engage their core. So when their core is engaged, the rest of their body can move freely. The head carriage should just be the end piece of the puzzle, where the horse comes into a frame naturally because all the rest of the pieces of the puzzle are in the right place. So in this picture with Fiddy, I'm bringing him back into work after he put his leg down a rabbit hole. I'm not really too sure what he did with it, but he definitely overstrained one part of his leg, which is where you can see there's quite a lot of weakness through his back there. And so this is just one piece of the training session where, you know, he isn't just always up in this short frame. He goes down into long and low, comes up, bends left, bends right, goes more forward, waits. Like, we've got all of a broad spectrum of exercises, but you can see here where he's carrying his pole is at the highest point, and we're getting lift through the knee and the shoulder, and he's flexing through the hocks, and the angle of the legs are equal. We're not getting more lift than engagement, we're not getting more engagement than lift, and we're not getting more frame than engagement and lift is creating. So the development of self-carriage is a balancing act of forwardness, balance, engagement, throughness, and then the end result is our steady head carriage. If we can get all of these pieces, we will get 60% in our dressage test. The trick is to get impulsion, which pushes you up to the 70% and over. And this is when we look at a horse and it's moving freely, and it's expressive in its movement, and it lifts and it carries ground, covers ground. Can't half tell, it's been a long day. It has nice ground coverage, nice relaxation, nice swing. It's adjustable in its stride. It will adjust itself approaching poles and jumps, and you can drop the contact with them and they're exactly the same on no contact as they are in contact. You know, all of these little pieces of the puzzle create the impulsion, which is the expression of the movement. So once you figure out how to put a horse's head down, then you know, you kind of are all in the same ball pit together. But if you can work your horse correctly and the head carriage is the end result of them working correctly, then that's when you really get to see your horse flourish and express itself through its movement, and that's what impulsion is, and that's what gets you over and up to the 70% and over mark. So we cover all of this in our membership, Green to Self-Carriage. We talk about not just using tempo changes, but other strategies for developing that forwardness and that power from behind. We use spirals and other exercises so that we are getting our horse to stand evenly into all four legs. We're using exercises that create engagement and drive from behind. And notice that I'm saying exercises, not aids. So it truly is when we are trying to use aids to make our horse work a certain way that we interrupt the flow and the ability to move. When we use the exercises to encourage our horse to work a certain way, then the aids are just the cues to ask them for the next thing. And so the exercises and creating that dynamic action is what allows the horse to move freely within the restraints of the aids. We use our exercises to create relaxation and swing over the top line, and extension and throughness of the shoulders. And so You know, if you work through what we've just laid out here, we're just really looking at each little individual part of the horse, and it kind of stacking together appropriately so that we're engaging the horse's posture. And as a result, the frame is just like that end little tuck, which is the horse's head naturally coming onto the vertical. So it's not my like poor posture that I've got here at the computer where I'm slouching and sticking my chin out. It's that, you know, being able to sit upright and pull the shoulders together, and it's just that end little tuck that we're asking for. So yeah, obviously we're looking for you know, some softness to the cue, which is to bring the head to give to the contact, but then we're riding that contact back out to get the movement, full movement of the horse. So our Green to Self Carriage membership is $69 a month, which is less than what it costs to have a lesson with me. If there is a breakdown or missing element in the development of self-carriage, you'll have issues when you're riding, like bucking, bolting, rearing, working behind the bit, brakes aren't working, issues with soundness, issues keeping them in work. So you'll bring them into work and they'll go lame and you'll have to spell them. They'll feel stuck, or you'll feel stuck and not moving forward in your training. So this is, you know, where you're going round and round and round the 20-meter circle and you're practicing it and it's not getting any better and you're not getting any further in your training. Is, you know, when we're actually using the 20-meter circle as a way of improving our horse's quality of work, then you know how to incorporate it in your training rather than you know, trying to perfect the 20-meter circle and then just getting stuck on the fact that you can't get it perfect. We also have a lesson plan that we send out every month that shows you how to combine these different exercises to give your horse the overall training and conditioning picture. So we've got each like exercise broken down into where it fits in the development and forwardness, engagement, throughness and self-carriage, but then we've also combined them into lesson plans so that you have a lesson plan for you to take down into the arena and apply to your horse, and you don't have to think about it because I've done all the thinking for you. So our big goal at Equestrian Movement is we want our horses to want to be ridden. That's, you know, what this first Do No Harm Summit is all about. You know, Anna talking about bit injuries and problems that we can create with our bits. Lisa talking about problems with our horses' hooves and the correct concussion on their lower leg and hoof. Jane talking about aromatherapy and how we can support the way that our horse thinks and processes emotion. These are all little pieces of the puzzle that encourage our horses to actually want to be ridden. Our big goal is to actually have our horses invite us into the saddle, and we use processes that we talked about last night in our Stronger Bond presentation about using consent and other training principles in opening that conversation with our horses. And we want our horses to enjoy moving. You know, a horse that enjoys its work is a horse that wants to be ridden. So being able to move, so one last tip, being able to move your horse through the levels of green to self-carriage is all about time. It does take 6 to 8 weeks to develop coordination, and this is, you know, the brain firing the muscles. This is the neuron connection to the muscles that make them work. That's what your coordination is. So from the time that you introduce a new exercise, you're looking at 2 months of them just practicing it to be able to coordinate it. You're looking at 3 to 4 months to develop the strength of the muscle and 6 to 12 months for the bone and ligament density. And that's if you don't have any underlying issues, physical issues, which is hard to come across, especially if you're working horses that are off the track. that they haven't injured themselves in the paddock, or they don't have saddle fit, bridle fit issues, they don't have hoof problems, they don't have ulcers. You know, this is the perfect unicorn horse. This is how quickly you can get into self-carriage. So it's important for you to remember that it doesn't matter how effective you are at riding the cues, it's still going to take the same length of time for your horse to develop the condition to do it. So rather than trying to force them into something that they're not ready for, we can use the exercises and coordinate the exercises in a way that builds our horse's condition for the willingness and the quality of response that we're looking to from our cues, because it's still going to take the same amount of time when we give them the opportunity to move and develop themselves as it does if force them into it. And honestly, it takes longer if we force them into it, because we have to go back and redo our work anyway, because you'll get stuck trying to move into, more difficult exercises. So our Green to Self-Carriage course is $69 a month, and you do get exercises in that core structure of how you flow from forwardness to engagement to throughness to self-carriage. We have it laid out so that you have you know where to go back to if things aren't working correctly, so you can move back through your prerequisites, and you know what to move forward onto if it's going too easily. So it's a really good way of just using those prerequisites as your warm-up and say check, okay, I am ready for these more difficult exercises, or using them in your warm-up and stopping at a certain place because your horse is starting to struggle. You can really start to find gaps in your understanding and your horse's conditioning and understanding. It actually also does include our trainability membership, so you not only get your horse's development, but you're also getting the breakdown of how to talk to your horse and how to teach them to learn. And every month you get the lesson plan, and at the end of the month we get the bonus coaching session, and it also comes with a 14-day money back guarantee. For the summit, we're also offering if you join our membership in the period of time that it's open over the summit, we're offering 2 coaching calls with me. So that is to the value of $170, and you can have one just to get going, and we can talk about where your horse is at and where you should start. And then we're also offering that second one as a check-in to see how you're going, and if you've had any hiccups come up along the way. Whee! So that is question time.
So Katie, Jane has asked, can we use the Green to Self-Carriage process to help the elderly who occasionally think they are 3?
Well, I'm sure Sarah knows the answer to that because she's done it.
The short answer is yes.
So Sarah implemented Green to Self-Carriage with Custard, who has got arthritis, and he went from hobbling around the paddock to cantering around the paddock. So and it didn't even really take that long once we were able to get him going either, did it?
No. I'd say within a period of 3 months we were seeing those changes. It was quite quick. And it got to the point where he was literally asking us to do specific exercises so that he could stretch and move into it. Of course, with our older horses, you would expect there are lots of injuries pre-existing. There is going to be more time that you're going to be spending being a little bit more cautious. And at a particular time we started doing this, we thought Custard was sort of 21, 22. We've now found out that he's somewhere around 25. He got retired from riding about 2 weeks ago, Katie?
Yeah.
And he's still carrying himself, even though he hasn't been properly ridden for about a good 6 months because of ongoing injury issues. He's still carrying himself much, much better in the paddock just from those small sessions of exercises. So the application of green to self-carriage was probably a little bit less intense from his perspective, to be mindful of his current age and disease processes. His riding sessions were probably a little bit shorter, but the riding sessions I was doing was a maximum of maybe 40 minutes once a week, Katie?
Yeah, yeah.
And that's the kind of change we actually saw in him. So you know, you could just imagine what it would actually be like if you were doing it more consistently than I could.
Yeah. And as always, we had our other support from other people helping Custer along. Our presenter tomorrow that's talking about body work is who would massage Custer for him to help him along as well.
Yeah, he really does love Christine. I needed to tell you, and this is a little sidetrack from where we are, he got really jealous when somebody else at the paddock stopped Christine for a talk, when he was like, come on woman, get over to me, hurry up.
Oh, bless him. And if you think about the horse that you started working with, that was so shy and didn't trust people and wouldn't approach them, there's no chance that he would have reached out like that.
No, yeah, there was never any inkling that he would have that kind of relationship with people, and never really had that kind of love in his life. And then to get to the point where he's like, fist bump me, yes, come on woman, just get this body worker over to me, come on, hurry up, I know she does good stuff. Yeah. He loved it. He's gorgeous. I do actually have a question for you though, Katie.
Yes.
So we use the terminology of green quite a lot.
Of what?
Of green. So as in the green to self-carriage, we use the terminology of green. The colour.
Brain. Jeez, my brain needs a break.
And obviously in a lot of mindsets, the thought of a green horse is really more of a younger horse that's just coming out of breaking. Would you like to extrapolate on what your thoughts are on a green horse?
So I do have quite a broad idea of what green is. Basically, green is anything that's not in self-carriage to me. If a horse is still working on balance and engaging its hindquarters and distributing its weight evenly and working on relaxation and swing and seeking the contact and holding its posture well, then that to me is still a green horse. In saying that, when our horses are in self-carriage, they're ready for half-pass pirouettes, traverse, shoulder in, collection, extension, and small circles. So green to me is quite a broad spectrum that includes you know, their ability to process and understand cues and stress, and then also be able to do 15-meter circles in trot and canter, lengthened strides, shortened strides, leg yields, pole work, shoulder fore. So I do have very high expectations of green horses. It's also horses that are coming out of one industry into another, so bringing I would still call an educated Western trained horse green if we introduce them to English, because they are green to that discipline. They do have to learn a different way to move and process their cues. So yeah, to me, anything that is not ready for collection, half pass pirouettes, shoulder in, traverse, and extending the stride is still green.
Excellent. And I've got one more question so far, which is from Pam. So Kate, Katie, do you think the process of going from green to self-carriage also improves the horse's emotional state, so they become more confident, and then can this lead to the idea of impulsion with more flourish and self-expression?
Oh, that's so beautiful, Pam. Of course, that's what I think. That's what I think about how we do green to self-carriage. But if you're using your aids to try and create a movement rather than using the exercises to create the movement, and the aids are just the cue, then I don't think that it has that emotional conditioning aspect. That's why we include trainability in our green to self-carriage course, because the two don't work together. Part of a horse being able to move freely is their ability to process the cues and learn and process stress without reacting to what we're trying to do with them. So the two kind of go hand in hand with that regard. So answer the question.
I think so. I think when we start to see horses feeling good with movement, they actually start and learning with the process, they actually start looking for more of that movement, you know. And you can just go back to Custard, who was actually asking me to do leg yield exercises, and what horse wants to do a leg yield, for crying out loud? And because that feeling of movement becomes so nice for them and so rewarding and releases the endorphins, it again goes hand in hand with the trainability component of the positive reinforcement for doing a job well and getting the aims, that the goals that they want out of it, which means that they're going to be much more willing and much more expressive into the process. Just like if you take it down to the trainability concept of like communication and fist bumps and all the rest, that a horse will become a lot more expressive with you just because you're letting them have that communication tool, to the point where they're actually fist bumping you just to say, hurry up, woman, let the body worker at me already.
Yeah. And, you know, one of the things that has been really good for me and Fiddy is the fact that when I first started working him, I took him on with the idea that I was going to sell him. So I didn't put the effort into the trainability aspect of that. And I've only really just started, doing that with him because I've bought him and I'm keeping him. So I'm like, all right, I need a horse that I like. And one of the things that I didn't realize is just me going down to the paddock to work him was stressful. So as soon as he saw me coming, like his body would tighten, and that has flow-on effects with his movement as well. So if we can create a horse that wants to work with us and is relaxed around us and knows that we're not going to push them past what they're capable of and we're not going to hurt them, then that in itself eases a lot of stress and tension on their body and frees up their movement. And again, that's our natural impulsion. When we kind of like start developing collection, you know, that's a little bit towards, you know, less natural impulsion, because they require a certain level of conditioning to be able to give us that. But just self-carriage is their natural freedom of movement.
Love it, love it. So that's all the questions that have come through. So thank you guys very much for participating this evening. Loved being able to talk about dressage again, which is something that I do aim to get out to once I actually have a horse that can leave a paddock. Yeah. We'll be working on floating skills with Stormy, it seems. Just a bit of a wrap up. This is their last session for today, which is currently at 8:30 on a Saturday evening in Brisbane, Queensland, Australia. However, we will be back in just over 12 hours talking to Lindsay Rein, who's coming to us, I believe, from the US. And she's going to be talking And now I'm having an absolute mental blank, so just let me go and check my notes.
Boundaries.
Boundaries, thank you. Boundaries for better horsemanship. So that'll be 9 a.m. In Australian Eastern Standard Time. Tomorrow is going to be another massive big day. So I really appreciate you guys that have stuck through us all day and jumped in and jumped out with us. I know that it's been a lot of training. There's a lot of new information that is probably floating through your head. These sessions, if you are in the Facebook group, they will stay in the Facebook group. I have actually created a unit section called First Do No Harm, and that's where these summit videos are being held as well. So rather than trying to scroll through the thousands of posts that are going on in our group at the moment, if you want to just click on the unit section and head down to the First Do No Harm, you'll see those videos and be able to binge watch to your heart's content. And hey, what better way on a Saturday night to spend anyway, talking about horses? Who needs Netflix? Seriously.
We are Netflix for horse riders.
This is free. You don't have to subscribe.
Yeah, that's right.
So tomorrow there will be 5 sessions. Really exciting to have 2 different horse trainers with us. Our physio, Christine, my body worker, who is absolutely amazing, and Custard is in love with. I think he's starting to love her more than me, Katie, to be honest.
To be fair.
And as you guys know, we'll sum it up with my presentation talking about the dreaded worming process for our horses, which they all love to hate. So thank you guys very, very much. If you are, I did forget to say, if you are watching the webinars rather than through the Facebook group, you will get these via email. They will be sent out to you. I'll do another roundup of the sessions around about lunchtime tomorrow so that you can catch up with the next 4. And the rest of it is have a great night. Thank you so much.
Bye.
Bye.